For the most part, when you want to see what people think about certain players and teams, look at gambling websites. Because if we're going to take the saying, the house always wins to heart, then we know they're going to do whatever it takes to not lose money. So they're going to do their research to find the best lines for games and prop bets. And you can see what they think of teams with future bets. And in the sportsbook, the Saints have the 21st best odds to win the Super Bowl and 9th in the NFC. However, taking a look at who the Saints are as a team, I think they're much closer than people around the NFL and sportsbooks are giving them credit for. And in today's video, I'm going to break down why. We're going to cover their current roster, what they're looking to do in the draft, and how they should actually rank amongst other NFC teams. And before you rush to the comments to say what you think about the Saints, I recommend waiting to see exactly what the Saints are, because I think they are criminally underrated. There's a lot to talk about, so let's get into it. First, we need to talk about the Saints returning roster. Now, before we get into the positive, they did lose two key pieces. One of the best left tackles in all of football in Armstead, and a great safety in Marcus Williams. We have to mention the loss of a legendary coach, Sean Payton. However, they did replace and give the play calling duties to Pete Carmichael, who has been with the Saints since 2006. So even though this is a huge loss, I don't see that much changing schematically. Which brings us to the most important position in football, the quarterback. And they locked in as they re-signed Jameis Winston to a 2-year deal, and hopefully he'll be back fully healthy and look to continue where he left off as a much more controlled, less unpredictable, big arm #1 overall talent. He can make any throw on the field, and I don't think his stats quite showed us some of the old Jameis that showed last season, because he did have some dropped interceptions where I was very confused why he even tried to make certain throws, but I loved how he took more of a backseat and really leaned into the short passing game and handing the ball off with a very good offensive line and an electric running back in Kamara. And he did have 14 touchdowns to only 3 interceptions. And that leads us into the next guy we need to talk about. Getting Michael Thomas back is a much overlooked feature to this team. He didn't play at all last season, and he hasn't played a full season since 2019, where he was a 1,700-yard receiver and had a record-breaking 149-yard receptions. And since we haven't seen him in a while, we need to look at this addition as a free agent signing, because we would all be freaking out if we saw Michael Thomas on a new team and talk about how much he's going to change life for his new team. Well, he is going to be a massive help for Jameis and completely open up the offense. This is a top 5 receiver when healthy, and returning to a roster that went 5-2 without him with Jameis. They did go on to lose their next 5, but then put it together and end up winning 4 out of their last 5. But how did they do this with Taysom Hill, Trevor Siemian, and Ian Book at quarterback? Defense, including a 9-0 win against the defending Super Bowl champions the year before, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And this is what really gives them a chance to go out there and beat any team any given Sunday. I see Jameis Winston very similar to Matthew Stafford. When the weight of the world is on their shoulders running an offense, they are so dynamic and can do so much. They can go out and sling it around and single-handedly win a football game, throwing 4 to 5 touchdowns and 400 plus yards on great efficiencies. Now, on the other hand, when they were in Tampa and Detroit, they could both go out there and throw 2 pick sixes, make horrible decisions, and single-handedly throw themselves out of games and be the main cause of them losing. Now, looking to Stafford with the Rams, Stafford could really lean into the defense. He could lean into the running game. He had a good offensive line and a ton of weapons, and still had the ability to make a naked boot 65-yard throw across the field when needed. And this was the winning recipe for the Rams. And talent-wise, it's hard to say that the Saints aren't too far behind, especially what I alluded to earlier, the defense. The Saints had a top 5 defense all year long, and it didn't get much worse this offseason. Again, they lost Williams, but they did get Sorensen. But this will always allow them to be in football games. So having a great defense immediately makes them a good matchup in any team in the NFL, and having the talent on offense make them a tough out in the playoffs, but more on that later. Now, they weren't overly aggressive this offseason, but most impressively, they went from $71 million over the cap to $30 million under, only losing 2 players. And most importantly, they have 2 really good draft picks in the first round in an absolutely loaded draft. And now we have to ask, did the Saints absolutely get fleeced by the Eagles? And the answer is, It depends, because it's really a yes and a no answer. They got fleeced in the terms that the Eagles came away with more and overall better picks. However, the Saints now have 2 first-rounders this year, which they didn't have before the trade, telling me they're willing to sacrifice an overall worse end of the deal for instant gratification, and whether they either think they can make a run this year or they see some talent that they could get in the first round this year, and I happen to agree with both premises. And at the very end of the video, I'm going to cover which 2 people I think they should target if they're still there, which yes means I don't think they should take both the picks and flip it up to move up in the draft, because this draft class is loaded but not very top heavy, and I definitely don't think they should use this opportunity to draft a quarterback this year for the future. But now let's start to talk about where they should rank against other NFC teams. Going back to them being the 9th favorite to win the Super Bowl out of the NFC, they are behind the Buccaneers, Green Bay, the Rams, the 49ers, the Cowboys, the Cardinals, the Vikings, and the Eagles. Now, to me, this is simply incorrect, and depending on the draft, I think they could get even better. They're better than the Vikings, they're better than the Cowboys, and they're better than the Eagles. Now we get to the Niners and Cardinals, where I see them being in the class of as now, but for different reasons. The Saints are like the Niners because they're an incredibly tough playoff matchup. It can go out and beat, quote, better teams like the Niners did against the Cowboys and the Packers, winning really cagey matches with really good defense and scoring at the right times. The Saints defense gives them the same image of being a tough out, even when going against, quote, better teams if they met the Rams or the Bucks in the first round. Now, the Cardinals are scary because they can get up and down the field with the best teams in the league, winning in 35 to 40 point shootouts. The Saints have the flexibility now with Jameis. If their defense isn't holding up and he's playing lights out, they can still win in a shootout. However, I'll admit that is a big if, because like we mentioned earlier, highly volatile play both ways. So now where I see them being in the range is the 4th to 6th best team in the NFC rather than the 9th, and I know that any team can beat any team in the NFL, but if the Saints get hot at the right time, it is not crazy to say that the Saints could make a run, which is opposite to what a lot of people are saying right now. So I don't necessarily think it's going to be super important who their matchups are in the playoffs. They do have the AFC North this year in the regular season, which isn't the best draw, but you have to play who you have to play. But even if they sneak in there with the 6th or 7th overall seed, I'm not too worried. But now let's talk about the draft picks. First, they have the 16th overall pick, and with this pick, we go with the best available receiver. Weapons is a proven recipe to winning championships, and you can never have too many. However, it also happens to be a need for the Saints as well. The first 15 picks are going to be so unpredictable, but if Jameson Williams is there, Garrett Wilson's there, Treylon Burks is there, Chris Olave, Drake London, grab them without hesitation. Throw Pickens in that rotation as well. And now we have the 19th pick. This is the one where they have a lot more options in my opinion, and it's really going to depend on who's there. To me, it seems obvious to replace Armstead, but James Hurst, his replacement, isn't bad by any means. But if you see a guy that can go out there and be a 10-year Pro Bowl type of guy, pull the trigger. But there's also a great case just to grab the best available safety. And even though defensive line is the strength of the Saints, like receiver, it is lethal to have a deep room. And if Jordan Davis somehow drops to this pick, grab him regardless if it's a need or not. But now I want it open to you guys. I hope you guys made it to the point in this video to really get a grasp on where we should be taking the Saints a lot more seriously and where we should see them in the NFC. The Ravens in the AFC, I made a very similar video not too long ago because I see people really low on the Ravens. I see people really low on the Saints, and I just want to bring these two teams to light to show you that they are being criminally underrated, and maybe that's exactly where they want to be. Being overlooked can be a very scary recipe for success, especially come playoff time. But make sure to like this video if you like videos like these. Make sure to comment down below what you think about the Saints, and make sure to subscribe if you enjoy daily sports content. I appreciate y'all so much for checking out the channel. You guys' support has been unbelievable recently, and as always, I will see you all tomorrow. Peace!